Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kirioth and I come to you today with a question. Just how hard do you like it? Yeah, I know, I don't know what the hell was going on when I came up with that. I suddenly thought of that as a title for a video and I was like, that's really dumb. But it kind of made me smug, therefore I should use it. But what for? And then I thought to myself, easy, sort of. What difficulty setting do you go for in games? What is your reasoning for using the difficulty settings you go on? Does it differ game to game, or do you just go, this is what I do every single time, regardless of whether it's an FPS, an RTS? You know, do you just go for the same thing, or does it depend entirely on what it is you're playing, basically? And I was thinking about this, and I realised I actually kind of have my own system that has been in place for God knows how long. For as long as I've been playing games, I think, which I realise will make some people unhappy, but you know, you can't please everyone. And that is that, really, I kind of boil it down into a couple of different categories, I guess. There are some games where I want to play it, I really want to play it, I really enjoy it, and I have no choice but to just accept whatever difficulty setting the game gives me. For instance, in the background you can see Darkest Dungeon. Now, I do love Darkest Dungeon, I just don't play it as much as I should. And it pretty much just does its own thing, and you go along for the ride, and you either succeed or you don't succeed. That's pretty much the way that goes. And I'm okay with that. Same thing with, for instance, Dark Souls. Dark Souls 1, 2 and 3. I never played Bloodborne, unfortunately, but the Dark Souls trilogy was pretty much the same thing. I really love those games. I love the way they tell story, and I really like the kind of almost like atmospheric or environmental storytelling that you get from them. It's not given to you on a plate. There's lots of little bits of information all around. You know, the different areas have their own thing to say about what's going on, and funnily enough, you just have to take those games for what they are. There is no difficulty setting. There isn't really a way for me to go, I'm only interested in the story. Can I have the story, please? Because the game says no. The game says this is what it is. Tough shit if you don't like it, which is fine, I can deal with that. Other games like Transistor have a kind of sliding scale of difficulty whereby you can make it more difficult if you want, or you can just leave it at the same difficulty and just do whatever you like. I kind of like that setting as well, where it's not a case of easy, medium, hard. You get these modifiers that you can implement to make certain things more difficult. So like enemies might have a bit more health, or they might have a bit more recharge time before they fire their weapons, or at least the recharge would be lower so they can fire more often, stuff like that. It's quite a nice way of doing things. But my general system comes down to, is it a narrative game? Like, is there a story? Is there a story being told where you are a character in the story and you are basically playing from start to final plot point, final plot twist if there is one, and you're just going through the journey in between? For games like that, I'm going to have to admit it, I just tend to be a filthy casual. I don't bother with like turning the difficulty up to max. I've never been a big chaser of achievements or challenges or anything like that. I'm not the kind of person who sits there and goes, well, there's a challenge, there's an achievement here in Steam to get, for instance, every ring in Dark Souls 3. A friend of mine I think has done that, at least he was partway through doing that when we were talking about it, and I did not envy him for a second, because that game was hard enough for me as it was, without adding in trying to find like every single specific item. I could not do that. I simply couldn't do it. I mean, as it is Dark Souls 3, I played quite a lot of it in co-op, which I suppose arguably is easy mode, unless you're as incompetent as I am, in which case it's just as hard as before, except there's more people around you to fail with. But yeah, when it comes to narrative games, to like story games where you're experiencing a proper full-on plot from start to finish, I tend to go full casual. I go full casual and I play it on easy. And I think my kind of reasoning for that is that if it's a game where the story is done well, I find myself kind of pushing the actual game mechanics back in my head. Like, the game mechanics are not the big draw for me playing it. I'm not sort of sitting there going, now this is incredibly well designed gameplay. I'm loving the way this plays. Instead it's more, oh wow, this plays really nicely. What happens next? And that becomes the overriding thought. That becomes the thing that really pushes me to carry on playing the game, and really pushes me to just keep going and going until I know what happens at the end. I just don't get that urge from most narrative story-based games to stick it on hard and challenge myself that way. Instead, I kind of reserve that stuff for like multiplayer games. So things like Overwatch, when I played League of Legends, Battlefield, stuff like that, I want to do well in those games. When it comes to playing online against people, I want to win. Like, I'll take a draw if a draw is on the table, but I want to win, and a loss isn't really good enough. I get really, not demoralised, but it's like, ah, God's sake, we could have won that, what the hell? And I only get that really from those multiplayer games, from those games where you're, playing other players. One of the big things for me that came from was playing League of Legends. Until then, I mean, I'd played World of Warcraft, I'd played various MMOs, I'd played plenty of online games, but very rarely did I actually play PvP in any way. League of Legends was like I think my first proper PvP experience, and very quickly it became a thing of, oh man, this is what it's like when you're properly challenging someone. This is pretty cool. I like this. I really like it. And it became that thing whereby I would play, before I started playing games against other people instead of just doing PvE, I would sometimes go above easy, but not very often. But I would do it. You'd be like, I can manage more than this. But then it just became a case of, if I want to challenge myself, I'll play another person. Like, if I want to sit there and make myself feel like I'm like I'm beating someone, I'll play Overwatch. I mean, the chances are that I won't beat them. I'll get a horrible loss and my ranked rating will just fall even further. But, on the off chance I do win, that's the thing to go for. That's the sort of go-to game. When Battlefield 1 comes out, I've no doubt I will pile hour after hour into that game, and I will want to win. Like, I will want to be killing people. I will not be happy with just going, oh, look at the plane falling out of the sky, that's cool. No, I want to be in there shooting people, preferably from a tank, although I'm sure they'll get nerfed to hell, which is understandable. But I want to be in there killing people. I want to be in there going like, well, 1-on-1, 1-on-2, whatever, and I want to come out victorious. Whereas, when I'm sitting there playing like Transistor, when I'm sitting there playing even Bioshock, Deus Ex, or any story-driven single-player game, I just don't get that urge. Instead, it's a case of, I want to know what happens after this scene. I want to see this develop. I want to see this story take shape. I want to know who that guy is, what he's doing. I mean, Dishonored is a great example, whereby I love the way you can play the way you want to in Dishonored. And frankly, I play it in what might be the easiest way possible, which is murdering everybody. Because it's just a lot easier to murder everyone than it is to sneak around them. And some would argue, no, that's not how you're supposed to play the game. I would say it lets you do it. Admittedly, I know I'm going to get a terrible ending out of it, but it lets you do it. I don't get that thing of, oh, I can sneak through the entire level. No one will see me. Brilliant. Instead, it's like, I want to know what the hell's going on. I want to know who that guy is. Oh, he's a piece of shit. I need to kill him. Let's go. It's like, I just don't have that kind of challenge attitude in those single-player games. Instead, it's all about the story, about the plot. However, I will say that some of the most fun I've had in games as a whole have been in like Dark Souls and Dark Souls 3. I mean, Dark Souls 3 especially. I played Dark Souls all the way through, and I played it, I had like 2 games running at the same time. I had a character where I was playing with another YouTuber called Rurikhan, and we were streaming it, went all the way through the game in co-op mode, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Admittedly, people were giving me overpowered gear all day long, so I ended up with, like, I think was it a demon great axe at plus 15 or something, which is ridiculous. And of course, I just went for massive strength and nothing else. Just, that's just how I like to roll. Fat roll, mostly. But I also played the game sort of by myself, on just me, no co-op or anything. And whilst I did enjoy it, I found frustrating moments that I only tend to find that I get in multiplayer games, and it's because the game is quite challenging. I had the same thing with Dark Souls 3, where I did a co-op run on stream, but I also did do a solo run as well, and some of the stuff was actually easier in the solo run. But even in that, it's like I would get to places and I'd think, oh man, this sucks. I'm stuck on this, but I shouldn't be stuck on this, but I can do it. I get that sense of frustration where you get the same thing playing a multiplayer game where things just aren't going your way. You just keep losing game after game. But it always comes down to, in my head, it's like, you could just go and do something else. You could just play a different game, or you could just play co-op, that works too. You know, there's always kind of a, not a justification, but a kind of thing in the back of my head where if I'm doing badly in a single player game, it's like, you could just make this easier for yourself. And 9 times out of 10, I'll just drop it down in difficulty, or I will go co-op and do it that way. Whereas I never get that feeling playing multiplayer. And you know, that's how I approach it. And I know there's a lot of people who are like, oh no, you gotta play hard mode all the time. But I don't know if that's true. I think it just depends entirely on what you aim to get out of the game. You know, for single player story-driven games, I'm there for the story. For multiplayer games, I am there for the challenge. And what I want to know is, what do you do? Are you the same as me? Do you just go, story mode is easy mode, multiplayer is hard mode, or do you just put everything up to hard? Does every game need to be a challenge for you? And if so, does it need to be a challenge? Or is it just something that you'll try, and if you can't get past a certain section, will you cave and drop the difficulty like me, or are you there for the long haul? Like, once you've selected it? Is that it? Is that how you go from that point on? Let me know in the comments. I'd be really interested to see what you say, because there's a lot of stuff, you know, there's so much gating going on in the gaming community where it's like, oh well, if you don't play it on hard mode, they're not a real gamer. Except it's not really true, I don't think. I think there's many different ways that people enjoy games, and I want to know how you enjoy them. Whether you go full on Madman, Iron Man, hard mode all day long, or whether you follow something similar to me. Maybe you don't play multiplayer games at all because you dislike that sort of challenge aspect where you're having to, you know, fight against other people. Maybe you only play multiplayer games because that's the only reason you play games. You know, you want to beat other people in these titles. Let me know in the comments below. I will read through all of them. I'd be really interested to hear what you do in terms of game difficulty, why you do it, and which games you do it for. Thank you very much for watching. I look forward to your responses. I'll see you next time. Toodaloo.